Many intoxicating THC gummies, vapes, and beverages will become illegal next year thanks to a bill just signed by President Trump. Opponents say it threatens a $30 billion a year industry that employs 300,000 Americans.
In today's episode, we'll be discussing the newest federal ban on cannabis products. We're live on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, so feel free to drop your questions or thoughts in the comments, and we may feature and address them on screen. So you've probably grown used to seeing actual THC products at your local Neiman's Market, Target, Circle K, Benny's, Total Wine, and more. I know I sure have become accustomed to seeing these THC products on the shelves. You may have even had them delivered through apps like Grubhub, and you've likely recognized that some of the brands that are found in your state legal dispensaries are also being sold through these channels. Perhaps you've taken it a step further and connected with a local grower who knows their craft to acquire these products. Whatever the case may be, the passage of this law marks the end of an era, a time where more cannabis products than ever before were available under a descheduled framework. In case you didn't know, drugs like alcohol and tobacco are descheduled, while cannabis has been, for the most part, a controlled substance. Which means that for the first time in modern history, you could legally access cannabis products that were not treated as controlled substances that are on par with heroin and other drugs, which means that you probably enjoyed a little taste of freedom when it came to the fact that you didn't have purchase limits, for example, or possession limits. The fact that you could get these products directly delivered to your door. These are all great features of a descheduled framework. And unfortunately, that's all coming to an end with the passage of this law. Folks, I am Cole Preston, and you can find all of my content at colememo.com. This show is brought to you by listeners like you. So if you'd like to help keep independent coverage alive, please smash that like button, share this content with a friend, or donate $1 at colememo.com/support. Once again, if you're catching this later and wondering how to catch the show live, I'd say the best way is to head on over to colememo.com/YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a stream. This podcast is also available for streaming on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and other podcasting platforms, or at colememo.com. Once again, we're live, so comment below and we can display your comments. If you'd like to call into the show and share your perspective, you absolutely can. We'll be opening up the lines here in just a little bit. You don't have to turn on your video. You don't even have to share your real name. But if you want to share your thoughts, you can call into the show. Stay tuned for that. We'll open up the lines for callers here in just a moment. So, folks, at this point, I'm honestly just bracing myself for the impact that this will have on consumers. Cannabis seeds will also become illegal as a result of the passage of this law. So if you're a consumer that has been acquiring genetics under this framework, I think home grow is one of the best things for consumers. And this framework allowed us to acquire seeds, and that will now be illegal. So you're going to have to go back to the days of immaculate conception for your genetics, unfortunately. So I'm really concerned about that. Among other things, I also wonder about the impact that this will have on the study of cannabis, as this framework has enabled higher education institutions across the nation to begin studying the cannabis plant. I can't help but wonder, will colleges still be allowed to continue their studies on the plant, or does this mark the end of that as well? I don't have concrete answers today, but what I do have are some reactions to this latest policy change from politicians in Illinois and across the country. So we'll be covering all of that and more right here on this episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
People have been growing businesses all across Illinois, Chicago, selling these products in stores. And now all those businesses that were selling them, they're going to have to shut those doors.
State Representative LaShawn K. Ford says this federal ban will just push the hemp-derived products towards an underground market.
So that was Illinois State Representative LaShawn Ford's reaction to the impending federal ban on cannabis products. Representative Ford recently appeared on this show. You can watch that conversation in episode 234 of the Cole Memo podcast at colememo.com, or you can check out the show notes for this episode. I'll be sure to link episode 234 for your reference. It was a great conversation with the representative. So Illinois Governor Pritzker was recently asked for his reaction to the federal ban on cannabis products that are commonly referred to as hemp. The reporter pointed out that it seems like this goes along with the bill that he supported in the past. Here was his response.
Well, as you know, what I wanted was for intoxicating hemp to be regulated the same way that cannabis is in the state. And I haven't looked at the details of the bill that was passed because it's not a complete ban. There's a regulation around it. It makes it harder for the worst parts of intoxicating hemp to be, just sold to anybody. So we're going to have to look at how we might, regulate it now that we see that the federal government is limiting it. But look, the goal here is to keep our children safe. That really is my number one goal about regulating intoxicating hemp. And when it's available everywhere and it's got names like Skittles with a Z on the end, and it looks the same as, the Skittles, the candy, it's just not right. And I have been disappointed that the industry here has been unwilling to accept proper regulation. So now we'll end up at the table talking about how best to move forward.
The governor was then asked a follow-up question. Would he ask the General Assembly to regulate these products the same way that cannabis is regulated?
Yeah, well, again, I have to sort of sort through what the federal bill actually allows us to do, because supremacy clause, we've learned a lot about that in the last few months. But we want to make sure that whatever it is that's allowed in the state of Illinois, again, is just safe for children and obviously safe for anybody that uses it.
So Governor Pritzker said he believes that products that look like common candy shouldn't be allowed. And I'm not sure if he's just unaware, but there is already clear legal precedent here. The Chicago Sun-Times reported that Mars Wrigley previously sued hemp companies for using packaging that mimic Skittles and other cannabis brands. I'll throw that on screen right now. I'll throw this article in the show notes if you'd like to read more. There is some precedent here. In other words, this kind of look-alike marketing is already illegal under trademark law, and companies have been taken to court for it. Rather than banning entire categories of cannabis products, we could simply apply the same three-pillar framework that already governs licensed cannabis sales in most states, including the state of Illinois. And that three-pillar framework, in case you're unfamiliar, is age gating, accurate labeling, and testing for purity and contaminants. If that approach works for dispensaries, I think it can work for all cannabis products, no matter where they're sold. I don't think that cannabis products are so dangerous that they must be relegated to a dispensary per se. In fact, I think cannabis products potentially might be one of the safer things you might find in, let's say, a gas station, for example. I also found it interesting that Governor Pritzker brought up the supremacy clause. And look, I am not a legal professional, and you probably already know that. But when we talk about federal law remaining supreme, I can't help but think about our own state legal cannabis system. Because, of course, cannabis is still illegal at the federal level, yet here we are with a state framework that functions anyway. And let's talk about that for a moment. Many cannabis consumers that I've discussed this topic with are just frustrated. They're just frustrated that we didn't take the best parts of this federal framework and bring them into the state legal system. Just to use Illinois as an example, a good compare and contrast are the licensing frameworks. The federal framework had licensing that encouraged competition and fair pricing. Many consumers don't feel that way about the state framework. The federal framework also offered accessible options like delivery, which is something we've been discussing for years at the state level. I say discussing, honestly, the last time I even heard it discussed was a couple of years ago, I think, at this point. So it's not been an active discussion. We don't offer sales through traditional retailers like convenience stores and gas stations like this federal framework allowed for. We don't allow for on-site sales in hospitality settings like concert venues, restaurants, movie theaters, and more. And that's what we saw as a result of this federal framework. You could get a cannabis beverage before you went and saw a movie. I remember stopping by my local gas station many times and getting a cannabis beverage. It was a cool time. I'm curious what you all think about this. And look, I know some people raise concerns about unsafe or synthetic products. And I want to be clear, that's not what I'm advocating for. I don't know anybody that enjoys those products. People bring up like Frankenoids and all of these crazy products. I'm like, I don't know who's purchasing those products. I don't think cannabis consumers are being fooled. I personally I seek out quality cannabis products, just like I always have. Before state legal systems ever existed, I was able to vet products and find the products that I like. And when I found products that I didn't like or thought looked weird, I would pass on those products. And look, I want to be clear. If you believe the safest place to buy cannabis is at a dispensary, no judgment. I think, though, if that's how you feel, it would make sense to apply the same standards from dispensaries to all cannabis sales. So rather than keeping cannabis sales restricted to dispensaries, I think we could just extend that existing 3-pillar framework I talked about earlier, the age gate, which means only adults can purchase the products. We should have accurate labeling. That's number 2. And of course, we should have testing for purity and contaminants. That's for every cannabis product. And if that approach works for dispensaries, I think it can work for all cannabis products, no matter where they're sold. Now, I want to be clear and say this outright too, because I know that I'm probably getting comments right now as I speak. I also believe that cannabis can be sold without testing. We should remind ourselves that cannabis testing is less than a decade old, at least mandatory cannabis testing. I don't think it's settled science. We've talked about it on the show many times with both labs, investigators, and journalists. Just Google THC inflation or lab shopping, folks. Cannabis testing is not perfect. That doesn't mean it can't be improved, but it's not perfect. And I think if you think about it, we've been consuming untested cannabis for longer, way, way longer than we've been consuming tested cannabis. Again, that's not to say that testing can't be improved, but what I guess I'm saying is I think there should be farmers markets for cannabis that are not subject to potentially that third framework, that third pillar, if you will, the testing for purity and contaminants. I think if you want to go to a farmers market and take that risk, just like you do with other produce and vegetable plants that you consume, you should be able to do that with cannabis. I know for some people that's a hot take. I think it's pretty reasonable. We allow people to, gift their home brew and everything else. And so I think this is a reasonable policy position, but I'm curious again, what you all think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll feature them on screen. We're also about to open up the phone lines if you want to call in anonymously. There's no need to show your name or video. When we come back, I'm going to share reactions from officials across the nation on this issue, and we'll start to read your comments and maybe even bring on some callers. Folks, you are tuned into
The Cole Memo.
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 The Cole Memorandums. The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
This drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
All right, folks. Happy Friday. How are we doing? We're going to look at reactions from elected representatives around the state. We've already showed a few, but we're going to show a few more. I just want to give a shout out to everybody that's tuning in. Good evening, Genetic Memory Farms. Good evening, Taven Young, or is it Taven Young? If I pronounced it wrong, let me know if I pronounced it right the first time or the second time. I don't want to mispronounce names here. Hello, Cole. Hello, Rachel. I want to acknowledge these comments. Rachel's saying, we tried some of the things I was referencing with House Bill 64 and Senate Bill 1775. Indeed, you did. And I really wish people would have seen what you were shooting for. It's a shame we didn't see an open embrace to that, especially since it would solve a lot of the problems that cannabis operators complain about. Cole sort of echoed a point that I made, which is that we defy the law on cannabis. He also makes the point that we defy the law with regard to ice. So you'd think we could do the same thing if we really wanted to. Genetic Memory Farm says, I hope you're all safe and stoned. Likewise. Thank you, Craig, and everybody else for tuning in. It looks like Rachel from River Bluff Collective is also tuning in. They are a social equity cannabis brand that also sells hemp. So they're on both sides of the fence, if you will. And it looks like Taven, I believe, was the first pronouncement that I had. So anyways, folks, check out some of the reactions to this hemp ban. You see people like Ted Cruz saying, I've long believed that the regulation of hemp and marijuana products should rest with each individual state. Reasonable minds can disagree, and a blanket federal prohibition disempowers the voters in each of the 50 states. It continues to say a one-size-fits-all federal standard will undoubtedly create unintended consequences that harm consumers. There is a vital need to protect children by, at a minimum, requiring that purchasers be 21, prohibiting synthetics and dangerous foreign imports marketed to kids. That's the approach Governor Abbott has taken in Texas. I urge others to follow Texas's example. I just want to reiterate that was Ted Cruz saying that. Ted Cruz, in case you didn't know, not a huge proponent of cannabis legalization, let's say. But that sounds a lot like it. It's just so interesting how this topic has brought out reactions from different people. Marijuana Moment, you can see they're reporting that Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, I believe is his name, said hemp is an important industry that should be regulated at the state level, not federally banned. You also have a comment from Tina Smith, Senator Tina Smith from Minnesota. She's saying in a post, leave our breweries alone. She's also saying Minnesota has one of the strongest, most carefully regulated systems in the country to allow the sale of products like THC beverages, and the Republican bill that just passed screws all of that up. We have lots of Minnesota breweries and distilleries that will be hurt by this. In fact, I just shared an article earlier today that was from Axios, and it's basically saying that brewers, you can see it on my screen right now, are now facing a financial meltdown. One brewer was saying, Chicago's Hopewell Brewing Company told the Chicago Sun-Times that THC seltzers and drinks make up 30% of their business. And that's all going to go away in less than 365 days. Folks, what do you think? You can call in now at colememo.com/live. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know we've had some people dropping comments along the way. I do appreciate you. Let's keep the show moving. We're going to watch this, I thought, interesting interview where you're going to see some more reactions. We'll talk about one of the lieutenant governors that's mentioned in this video that we're about to watch. Here is a company that actually sells these once legal THC, temporarily legal. What are we going to call them now, since we've got less than 365 days? Anyways, this person had been selling legal THC beverages, and they were interviewed by News Nation. Let's watch this interview.
Let's bring in Diana Fruz on this, the chief operating officer at Kite Soda, which is a THC-infused soda made in Minnesota. Welcome, Diane. So what's on the line for your company now financially? So put it in, I saw numbers, it's like the whole industry, basically, like 95%.
Yes, it could essentially shut down our entire operations. I'm sure you can imagine with the language as it is written in the bills. So what we have to wait and find out now is what our distribution network's plan is. Are they intending to discontinue sales at this time? Are they going to continue sales? As we have heard mixed responses from the various distributors in our network. So we're in a holding game right now, as we have to wait and see how this unfolds a little bit.
To be honest, I think sometimes us in the media, we're all guilty of it. This story or this industry sometimes it does not get treated seriously. Like there's too many like plays on words and you're joking around about it and that kind of thing. But it's obviously very serious business with a lot of money on the line. So I just want to dig right into some of that and allow you to make the case for your industry, but do so if you can by defending your industry. So one of the arguments, Dan Patrick is the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, he makes on social media that the THC ban has been a priority for me and that I appreciate Congress, quoting him now, addressing this important issue at the national level. Here's the part. I believe this ban will save a generation from getting hooked on dangerous drugs. What's wrong with that?
Well, I think the bottom line is the ending of the statement of quote unquote dangerous drugs. The foundation of that solely rests on rhetoric that was created by the government at the beginning of the 1900s, and it was developed in order to help control immigrant populations. And that's where we sit today. I grew up in the 80s. I was exposed to all of the "this is your brain on drugs," the anti-drug movement, and I have been a medical cannabis user since 2011 in California because I have issues with muscle spasms, sleep disorders, and those things are what really drive this forward. And it's been a huge, huge platform for me to try to express that to people, that I've worked corporately, I've had successful careers, all while using cannabis. It doesn't ruin my life. It doesn't make me a degenerate. Our bodies have an endocannabinoid system, so does every mammal on this planet. The plant has evolved alongside of us for thousands of years. Unlike industries like alcohol, et cetera, which are not being scrutinized right now.
Is that
like
what drove
cannabis.
this a lot? The alcohol industry, the competition?
To our knowledge, yes, absolutely. It's been fighting against us.
You know, but the other question I would ask, and this comes up with anything, whether sometimes it's come up in the past with alcohol, with smoking, with all kinds of things, is how you market products like this, right? And I have a letter from the Minnesota AG to Congress. This was on October 24th, that many of these products created by manufacturers by manipulating hemp to produce synthetic THC are more intoxicating than marijuana, Schedule I controlled substance, and are often marketed to minors. So how would you or either address that and or change some of what's going on in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. From my experience, we've had extremely strict rules around how we can market. In fact, most platforms don't even allow marketing for hemp or cannabis. So for the claim to be made that we are creating marketing to children or under 21 is pretty excessive, in my opinion, because I look at alcohol products out there, and in my face every day is a product that I see Shaq promoting called Beatbox that is obviously marketed for children and underage drinking, but we don't have any outlets like that. And we also have a lot of scrutiny over what can be on our products. We have been compliant. We've had sign off from the Minnesota Pharmacy Board that our branding is compliant. And we do take it very seriously that it is the parents' responsibility, along with the industry responsibility, to create education and awareness around safe storage, proper usage, and how this impacts you if you do get your hands on it.
Okay, interesting discussion on all this. Again, this is a big story for your industry. Kite Soda is the brand, but for the whole industry. So we thank you for coming on today, and we'll follow it, see how it all kind of shakes out.
So I thought that was super interesting. What did you all think? I know some people were commenting throughout. I'll acknowledge one comment here in a little bit. Specifically this comment. It's a good conversation conversation starter. But we are taking callers. You can call in live now at colememo.com/live. How do you feel about this topic? You know, I know a lot of the conversation focuses on the products and their availability and how this affects businesses, but I'm concerned, of course, about how this affects other people, but how it affects me as a consumer. I truly have just been enjoying the amazing things that came with this federal framework, the ability to purchase. I know I've said this list so many times, but like I can't believe it's all going away. The ability to purchase seeds, the ability to purchase as much cannabis product as I want, the ability to possess as much cannabis product as I want, so long as it's compliant with that federal framework. The loss of seeds is a huge one. Not only for consumers, but it does affect industry as well. It is going to be interesting. I mean, the industry never had problems acquiring genetics, but they couldn't be honest about where they acquired their genetics until recently. Like I be interesting. I actually have somebody that's been on the show in the past that sells seeds to industry and home growers. I'll have to maybe connect with them and see how they're affected or how they're feeling about all of this. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Comment below because we are live. I can display your comments. Mr. Jazz Cabbage says, do you remember Verano's salad container caper? Exactly. So there were allegations in the past. You can look it up. I don't know what the headline is, but there were allegations that a company, Verano, had taken seedlings or clones from Illinois to Arkansas, I believe the allegations were. And it's funny is that at the time, I don't know if a lot of people knew, but cuttings, because they're such young plants, likely qualify as hemp and therefore are not illegal to bring across lines. Rachel Berry says hemp beverages will be the only product to get a carve out, and the hemp isolate for those products will largely come from outside of the United States. Yeah. Yeah, that's a topic that interests me. What I will say about this, that I don't think a lot of people give hemp credit for. I know I talk about a lot of the different things that I enjoy about this framework and how I think it's pro-consumer, but I don't know if you remember, but cannabis beverages used to suck before hemp. Like, they were bad. They were not good. Maybe you knew of a few, but they weren't good. And I actually found out that the reason that cannabis beverages have gotten better is because of hemp and the scale that came with hemp. People were able to figure out the best way to make a beverage that actually tasted good. And perhaps most importantly, you didn't lose your THC. I don't know. It's hard to make a cannabis beverage. I try to do it at home, not for business, but for myself. And it's hard to make the THC stay in the liquid. I don't know if anybody's ever tried it before, but I had issues where the THC, it would just literally, yeah, it's a tough thing. And so that was one of my thoughts on hemp beverages that I don't think people realize. I had somebody on the show in the past talk about that cannabis beverages not only are not ideal because dispensaries don't typically have fridges. Some of them do nowadays, but typically they don't have the space to devote to beverage. And most importantly, perhaps keeping beverages cold and ready to go, because we like them cold and ready to go, right? They were just never operating at a scale, beverage makers, that actually allowed for the innovation that we've seen. So I thought that was a very interesting perspective that I never would have known. I never would have made that correlation. So, well, all right. There are some new videos that actually just came out while we were on the air. One from the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois. I've not had a good chance to watch it yet, but before I throw that on the screen and maybe we'll watch that together, I wanted to share for our listeners a list of representatives who voted for and against the bill. So if you want to return to this after the fact, these are representatives that voted for the hemp ban, among other things. There was other things included in this legislation, but it is notable that both representatives from Illinois voted, and a number of representatives from other legal states voted in favor of this. So feel free to return to this at a later date. But I know a lot of people were asking last time we talked about this, where and how did people vote? So, just interesting stuff. We're about to talk about new regulations coming out for the Illinois cannabis industry. But before we do that, like I said, CBAI did just release a reaction video, or I don't mean to say CBAI released it. It was a Fox News report that includes the executive director of CBAI. Cole Cram commented and said Duckworth originally voted against it, then changed her vote. Interesting. I reached out to Senator Duckworth's office to see their perspective on that legislation, and they didn't give me a policy stance. So, but they answered my call and passed along how I felt about the policy. So let's watch this report from Chicago Live. Here we go. Just came out.
A federal budget deal that bans hemp-derived THC products in Illinois and nationwide. It's got a ton of buzz. An executive director.
And as we're calling this, or watching this rather, feel free to call in, colememo.com/live. You don't have to show your video. You don't have to even tell me your name. The call can be anonymous. Would love to hear your thoughts on this report as it is fresh.
Of the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, Tiffany Ingram is joining me now to talk a little bit about what's going on here and react to it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, okay. So let me just ask you first and foremost your reaction to the new announcement.
Well, we're definitely very pleased to see the loophole closed, given the things that we've seen happen as a result of the loophole. So we were.
Whoops, I was muted. In case you didn't know, Tiffany Ingram, again, she represents CBAI. In case you didn't know, CBAI is the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, which includes some of the largest they represent some of the largest cultivators in the state of Illinois. So I'm just skipping back just a little bit and we will continue where we left off. In case you didn't know who we were listening to.
Things that we've seen happen as a result of the loophole. So we're very pleased and thankful for what Congress was able to do.
So let's talk about which products would actually be banned, because I'm hearing that some things would not, some things would. Give us the breakdown of the types of things that would or would not be a part of this ban.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So what Congress's actions essentially do is make clear that there is a clear line between what constitutes as hemp, which is traditionally associated with non-intoxicating items like CBD, or industrial hemp that's used for, sort of products and clothing, right? Or your tinctures for wellness. So they created a bright line of what that means, and that's 0.4 milligrams is the amount. Now, if you're above that line, you are now considered cannabis. You're a cannabis product, and that wasn't clear before, and they've made that clear with the actions that they.
I apologize, folks. I am watching this for the first time. I want to skip back and listen to something she just said one more time.
So they created a bright line of what that means, and that's 0.4 milligrams is the amount. Now, if you're above that line, you are now considered cannabis. You're a cannabis product, and that wasn't clear before, and they've made that clear with the actions that they took this week. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is that items that you see in sort of like your Delta 8s and your synthetic cannabis, those things are no longer in this legal gray area that the federal loophole had allowed during that time.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard the governor's reaction to this? Because I listened to him. He, of course, has been strongly advocating for more regulation here when it comes to some of these products, especially Delta 8, as I understand it. So have you heard his reaction to this, and what were your thoughts on his statements?
Well, we've appreciated the statements that he's made on addressing this issue in Illinois. The governor has been very vocal about his concern about how these products are accessible to children, create customer confusion, and actually.
So one of the things I wanted to pause for in just for just a moment is the statement she made about like what traditionally is considered a hemp product, and I noticed she mentioned like tinctures for wellness, and she also mentioned like rope and stuff like that. And on that part, I'm with her. Like, and I've always been with anybody that's like confused about the hemp thing. Like, and by that I mean when we call a beverage that has 50 milligrams of cannabis, like this beverage that I've got in my hand right now, 50 milligrams of THC specifically, people get confused. Like, why is that called hemp? And they just can't get over that hump. I've found that I know it seems small, but it's just something that people get caught up on. They don't understand the arbitrary distinction. Moving past that, what I don't, I, I think it's funny how we're all just creating our own definition right now of what hemp is. So some people will agree. It's like, oh, it's hemp is fiber, hemp is rope, hemp is stuff like, used for quote unquote industrial purposes. I guess my point is that this isn't a scientific distinction. In fact, some people, and we've played this clip in the past, some people have said that one of the uses of the hemp plant is marijuana. In other words, the psychoactive cannabis, the psychoactive proponent of cannabis. There's always been this, it seems like, understanding that there is a binary, but I don't think it's ever been defined in cannabis. If you're wondering what I was just talking about, by the way, this is from an old TV program, just to show you. There just really isn't a scientific definition, from what I understand, of hemp right now. It'd be great if there was. The TV program I was referencing.
Most of this week's program is about a common plant, hemp. Hemp is a plant that has been illegal to grow in the United States since 1937. One of the uses for the hemp plant is marijuana. There are also many other uses for hemp, including making paper.
So it just has always felt fuzzy, this whole thing. Curious what you all think. We also got a follow-up comment. So Rachel, if you're still tuned in, had commented that the hemp isolate is largely coming from outside of the U.S. Somebody had asked, where is it coming from and if it's converted? But we're gonna continue watching this video.
The worst in land people in some pretty precarious situations as far as not feeling well or having to go to the emergency room because of what's put in these products. And so he's been an advocate of supporting reining this industry in, and I think Congress has made that a lot easier to do so.
Some businesses, and you are with the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, so some businesses have said that this is going to offset or to set off an existential crisis, essentially. Do you see it that way?
Thank you for the question. I think what you're referring to, I think that's a very good description. So what Congress did do is they allowed for a year transition period. So, these items, unless the state governments decide that they want to start doing enforcement or other activities now, these businesses have in sort of like a year transition period to transition their business out or in compliance, depending on the jurisdiction, right? Mm-hmm. With that said, we believe that there are going to be some product dumping because folks, have inventory and they need to get rid of that inventory so they don't lose, revenue. And so, our fear is that the Illinois market in particular will be inundated with a lot of these products that are not tested, or have any accurate labeling. None of those requirements are there, so it's unclear what they are. We think there'll be a lot more of them, unless there's action done at the state level.
Yeah, there were several small and minority-owned businesses that and the owners who spoke out about essentially being locked out of the market. Do you think this will affect them even more negatively?
So if I understand your question correctly, when you say minority-owned businesses, are you referring to the social equity
Correct.
license holders under the CRTA? So yeah, there are. So what Illinois did was that it created a limited license state, right? So there's a small, there's a limited license of licensees that were able to access the industry. There are other states that have allowed for a more expansive, unlimited license state, which means like if you meet the criteria, then you can operate, right? But what that means in Illinois, because it was a limited license state, and because of the intensity, the cost intensity of operating these sorts of businesses, it was very challenging for a lot of folks to get into this business. Both folks that were qualify under social equity, right? Because these are still very cash intensive businesses. We are we're extreme. We're involved in a great deal of complicated, very expensive regulation. We also are taxed at some of the highest levels. This makes it very difficult for businesses, especially social equity businesses that are in this market, or even wanted or are still trying to get in this market, to be able to flourish. It's the structure of the business that's really making it hard for people to be a part of the cannabis industry because of the regulation and the taxation.
So then this ban could actually help many of those businesses.
I hear your question in two ways. So for businesses that are currently operating, for social equity businesses that are currently in a space, depending on how the state deals with this interim period, it may result in some relief from the competition of folks selling very similar things or things that are analogs to cannabis. That factors in. It does not help them in the sense that they still have to endure a great deal of taxation and a great deal of regulations that they have to adhere to as good actors under the cannabis laws of Illinois. So depending on how the state addresses this, it will still be very challenging to operate a cannabis business in Illinois.
Gotcha. So how popular are these hemp products and how intoxicating are they?
Oh, I love that question. So I was I was just at a Wake and Bakery because I'd never been to one. I wanted to see what they were selling. I saw a Rice Krispie treat for 100 milligrams. Licensed cannabis businesses they have a potency cap of how much they can sell. And so you see a lot of really high potency products in the hemp market. To answer your question about popularity, these products are popular in so much that because licensed cannabis products are so very expensive due to the taxes, there's a price point where people are going to start shopping in alternative markets, which could be the hemp market, or going to Michigan to get cheaper product. And so that also affects our social equity licensees here in Illinois, and frankly, anyone in the cannabis business in Illinois. And so these products are widely popular, also based on, consumer confusion about what constitutes a dispensary, because many of these places will even say cannabis dispensary when that's not actually, in fact, a licensed cannabis dispensary. So we hope it does clarify, but we're very, very concerned and on high alert about this interim year period, because that really relies on, what our policymakers decide how they will approach this.
Very interesting, and a lot hangs in the balance for so many people. Thank you so much. Again, Tiffany.
All right. So a lot in there. that's definitely worth discussing. I'm wondering what your thoughts are. I didn't catch that. Did people are saying 100 milligrams is within regs? I thought she said 200. Maybe I was just trying to take everything in, and the joint hit back as well, if you can't tell. Hemp is in the genome of cannabis. Yeah, exactly. I mean, hemp is an arbitrary term. It's not even a term based in science. That's what I think I'm getting caught up on. In other words, it's a made up word. Like all words are made up, I guess, if you really think about it. But Tom says, I wonder how long it would have taken to get a CBG or CBN product on the shelf at licensed dispensaries if the Farm Bill never happened. Hemp cannabinoids are a large part of dispensary supply chain. Yeah, I was going to say that it'll be interesting. We're going to talk about those regulations actually here in a moment, but it'll be interesting, how this affects that because, like you said, I'm aware of a large number of people that use edibles, that make edibles, or people that are planning to make edibles that want to be able to source CBG, CBN, and other cannabinoids from hemp in air quotes. It's all from cannabis. Which came first, hemp or cannabis? It's like the chicken and the egg conversation. Yeah. I would just say it's cannabis. It's all cannabis. And then it's like you had this, this, Cole, but speaking to a commenter, Cole, by the way, for listeners, I just displayed their comment on screen. But it's just that arbitrary binary that apparently is no longer going to exist. And it's a complete hemp ban, not just intoxicating. That's a good point. That's actually a good point I should cover before I go. From what I understand, before I go to the next segment, I should say, from what I understand, you're not going to be able to sell, like a lot of people are saying, well, you just can sell CBD products. And it's like, from what I understand, no, you're not going to be able to sell CBD products anymore. And so, because in order to make CBD, you're going to have some THC in the mix, and as a result, it will be illegal. Brandon Krieger comments and says, as far as I understand it, you won't even be able to extract CBD. So yeah, it seems like a lot of things are very unclear. But we'll take it. We'll track it for sure. I should mention again that was the executive director of CBAI. Let's take a look at their members. So I'm displaying on screen the members. I think it's notable to mention that Curaleaf right here is a company that is pretty involved in hemp. So, oftentimes this conversation is framed as like these random opportunists that are selling sketchy products. And it's like, well, maybe that exists, but there are also people that are selling these beverages in Target and Benny's and many, many other people. Many other places, I meant to say. But anyways, we are going to keep this show moving. We're going to talk about some upcoming regulations in the Illinois cannabis industry and an article that just came across my desk before we close out the show. We're going to keep it moving right here on the Cole Memo. Okay, so I'm going to throw this on my screen right now. This is a post from Victoria Williams, who's been on the show in the past. She is a operator here within the state of Illinois, and she is talking about an email that she got from the state. I actually attended this meeting and wanted to share some of these industry updates. Now, I think that maybe this summary was created using AI, and the only reason I say that is just seeing things that look like the summary was made with AI. But this stuff sounds about right. I had read that the state is going to move forward with its plans to allow the use of hemp-derived isolates, which is something we were just talking about. Even though this hemp ban is right around the corner, I found that interesting, but I guess we're rolling with it. So that's something that's coming around the bend. Apparently, it was clarified that infusers cannot process flower, grind flower, make pre-rolls, make infused pre-rolls, extract THC themselves, create concentrates, or package or repack flower. Somebody's talking about home grow. I have a really interesting story to mention on home grow, by the way. That'll be the last thing we cover tonight. It's important that we talk about home grow in the state of Illinois, and I've got an amazing story featuring a raid, some body cam footage, stuff like that. We'll talk about it more later on in the show. Yeah, home growers are still getting raided in the state of Illinois. That's the long story short on that. Craft growers and cultivation centers keep all flower privileges. Transporters will get new, clearer rules. There's going to be transfer site requirements. So, in case people didn't know, like, first of all, the state of Illinois is huge. If you didn't know that, to drive from the southernmost tip, and this is what was told to me from a licensed cultivator in the state, they're like, to drive from the southernmost tip of the state of Illinois to the northernmost tip, it takes a while. It's like a 9-hour drive or something like that. Like, it's a big state. And depending on what's going on and all the construction on I-57 or whatever fucking interstate you're on, you might be slowed down a little bit. So the long story short is, on this, the reason I'm finding this notable and want to mention it to you is because transporters have to deal with a regulation that basically says you can transport your product, but you must be back by the end of the business day. Like, you can't, and if you're not back, like, that's a problem. You're going to get fined, right? So, if you make a trip and you grow your weed in Southern Illinois and you make a trip up to Chicago and you're not back by the end of the day, like, you could be in trouble. And also, like, things happen, right? Maybe you mislabeled a product, or maybe, I don't know, just something fucking happens and you try to check in an order and you don't have what you thought you had, and so they don't accept the order. Like, you can't just, like, go back and then come back. Like, you have to really strategically plan out your whole day. And so transporters have been, long story short on that, is transporters have been pushing for what you might call distribution hubs. In other words, places where if they need to, because they can't make it back to home base, let's call it, by the end of the day, a place where they can, like, store the material and sort of leave it as holdover. You might be asking, why are we treating cannabis like nuclear material? Hey, don't get me started on that. I've got a really awesome report I can share on that if you've not seen it in the past, but we'll cover that later. We're going to keep moving on some of these changes. So apparently they're updating their rules on switching drivers, the rules around product hold times. There's going to be new security standards. There's going to be fee reductions. And this is what I thought was interesting. They are still moving forward with their hemp policy, which is something, I think they're codifying it, is what we found. I could be wrong. I think they were codifying this so that basically you could use hemp-derived isolate under 0.3% THC. It's got to be approved by the department before entering a facility. It must be tested before use. I heard a lot of people complaining about this specific regulation. It cannot exceed 50 grams. Some people are like, we need to be able to bring in a fucking barrel, yo. They didn't actually say it like that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's basically what they were saying. Like, we need to be able to bring in a barrel, please. Looks like we have a caller, and maybe they'll have comments on this. I know we've discussed this in the past. Satisfied Mind, how's it going, man?
What's up, dude? Yeah, it's not too bad. Just got home from work and been listening on the way home.
Oh, thanks for tuning in. For tuning in. So you caught some of these new rules I'm talking about?
Yeah, a little bit. I haven't got too much into reading the exact
Same.
wordings and stuff like that, but yeah, just kind of a brief glimpse of it.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on anything?
I don't know.
I
I'm
thought the
all for the
transfer site
change.
thing was cool and I guess a needed change. Still
Yeah.
seems silly, but it's a needed change, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Some of that kind of stuff like seems kind of just common sense that they didn't think far enough ahead to realize that, like you said, the state's pretty big and going from the southern part of the state to Chicagoland, where majority of the dispensaries are, like some of that's kind of tough to get to in one day, especially if you've got a couple different places to go drop off at. So I think that's kind of a necessary, you know, thing that should have been put in maybe at the beginning, but lack of attention, maybe. I don't know. I think all of the change is good. You know, to me, it shows that they're kind of wanting to make things better. Sometimes it maybe doesn't seem that way.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing what they can within their power. Yeah.
I hope that they're listening to what people are saying. Customers, patients, people within the industry, you know, I hope they're listening to all aspects of it as well to write these new rules.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought this was just interesting how this all came up. We had discussed this last time. I know you had asked me some questions about it. I told you about a hearing that I had attended. But this is, I believe, the result of that. And I believe these were, if folks want to read the fine print, I'll try to find it. I was sent a copy of the Illinois Register, which is such an exciting read, let me tell you. Have you ever seen the Illinois Register?
No.
No. Illinois News Joint does some reporting on the Illinois Register every once in a while. I wouldn't be surprised if they do some reporting on it again soon. But it's this it's like where they basically promulgate, I think is the word, rules and stuff like that. It's like, so they announce different rules, hearings, and that's how you are notified and can like formally participate in these things. And I can pull up what I'm talking about here in just a moment.
I missed Pritzker's. You said that he had reacted or something.
Yeah, he
Talking about
basically,
it.
yeah, he just basically, if I recall correctly, it was just like, you know, glad they moved on this. It'll be interesting to see how this affects our conversations at a state level, because he's like, I'm not super familiar with what you know, this all means right now. And but he said his number one concern is like children and like these products that are named like Skittles with a Z that are just sold everywhere and kids can get them. And so that, you know, which is something that a consistent concern he's aired, you know.
Yeah, and I get it. You have to be 21 to get into the dispensaries. You
Right.
got to be 21 to go buy alcohol. So seems like a pretty easy fix, but
yeah, exactly.
and I understand too, you know, the whole imitation packaging that looks like you said, Skittles or Jolly Ranchers or Sour Patch Kids, whatever kind of gummies and that kind of stuff, like the deceitful packaging that makes it look like the standard store-bought product that's not cannabis. I tend to agree that is just a dumb thing. Like,
yeah,
the cheap like marketing gimmick basically of these companies doing that kind of stuff. So I agree. Get rid of that, you know.
Right. This is the Illinois Register. One thing I'll say before I go, I don't know how far we'll go into this. I'm just kind of showing it for people that are curious. But I will say on the candy thing, and this is something I had mentioned earlier. So you said you missed that segment, but just for folks that are tuning in now, like I had learned that basically what that is, like that is already illegal. You know, sort of making those impersonation, or you know, impersonating other brands. And Mars Wrigley has actually sued a hemp producer in the past for like literally exactly that, using the Skittles name. I'll throw it up for just a second because I've got the article.
So
It's
is that just trademark infringement? It's just too close to the original that you can't get away with it.
Right, right. And just because, you know, they descheduled part, you know, because some people will say, well, this is like a result of cannabis being descheduled. It's like, no, like that doesn't preclude you from copyright infringement. And this is an
Yeah.
exact the people behind this were a brand called Terp Hogs, and they were selling like Skittles, like,
Yeah.
you know, that type of stuff, which, like you say, yeah, does not. I get a little conflicted sometimes. Like on one hand, I'm like, oh, that shouldn't exist, and then on the other hand, I'm like, you know, the fact that they made like Coca-Cola with Jack Daniels in it, and like a hard Mountain Dew, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like as an
Yeah.
adult, I don't mean for kids, obviously.
The problem is that it's not a licensed branding deal with Mars Wrigley, like you
True.
said. You know,
Right.
it's with, and I think the same thing with like the vodka company that has like the Sunny D,
Right.
or these seltzers and stuff that have these flavors that people are familiar with. Like, yeah, that's a great business, you know, decision, but for the cannabis companies or hemp companies that are doing that, you don't have that license, that freedom to use that name. So like you can't do it.
Right.
And these alcohol companies that are doing that kind of stuff, they probably have that licensing deal, and they also have the money to pay for that licensing deal to use that name or the likeness of those brands. So yeah, I
Exactly.
like you said, I think it's cool, you know, that you have a weed that tastes just like Skittles, but figure out a different name to use then, you know?
Yeah. Or work on your partnership with Mars Wrigley.
Yeah.
You know, like do it the legit way. Yeah.
And like you
So
said, I feel conflicted about it, you know? It's
yeah.
a weird thing, but how
Yeah.
often do they release this register?
It's a good question. I mean, this is volume 49, issue 40. So I mean, they've got at least 49 volumes, a lot of pages. There's a lot going on in here. But you can see right at the top, proposed rules, agricultural department, Department of Agriculture, Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. And so that's
Cool.
apparently on page 12. Oh, wait, I don't even know how this thing works. Like I say, folks should check out IllinoisNewsJoint.com. They do some reporting on the register. I'm sure they will in the future. But here we go. You can see some of the rules that we were just mentioning. So they're reducing fees. They're clarifying the CBD input policy, the transfer sites for transporters. So if people want to read the fine text, I'll try to think of I could probably I'll throw this in the show notes for folks that want to see that. That'll be in the description of the episode of the podcast, wherever you're listening from right now. But any other thoughts though? I feel like I got super into the grains of sand there for a second, just showing people how they can read the fine print.
Yeah, I didn't have any reason to jump in other than just to chat a little bit. I enjoy talking
Sweet.
weed stuff, so
Well, let's talk home grow then, and we can close out the show if that sounds good. You want to do
we can
that?
do that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Let's do that. So, first of all, I mentioned this earlier, before I talk about home grow. It was pretty for our listeners right now. It was pretty easy to join the podcast, right? You just go to colememo.com/live, tap the button, and it's like you're in.
I was gonna say like 2 clicks maybe. The most work was making sure that my camera and my microphone were working, but that's routine for me now. So yeah,
Yeah.
super easy.
And for folks that may be camera shy, you don't have to turn on your camera if you don't want to. But
Yeah,
if you
no,
do that, that's nice.
Yeah, it's defaulted off, I believe. So yeah.
Yep.
Super
Exactly.
easy, convenient.
Yep. So colememo.com/live if you want to join the conversation. But you know, one thing I'm super bummed about with this hemp policy, and it'll be this impending hemp ban, I should say. If it, you know, it's the law of the land, it takes place in less than 365 days. Whether or not we see another proposal that sort of floats what we knew as hemp is yet to be seen. But for all we know now, in less than 365 days, the little experiment we knew as hemp is over. And one of the things that I don't think is been given enough air time to is the impact it'll have on home growers and the industry, actually. Because before now, the joke used to be in the industry that you get your genetics via immaculate conception. Of course, the joke amongst us home growers was like, I'm getting novelties.
Birdseed.
Birdseed, yeah. And now we just called it hemp. So it's like not much different. But the fact that we, like the DEA literally had said under the interpretation of the Farm Bill that seed doesn't, it definitely is not something that is a controlled substance. It was like the closest green light we've ever gotten to just like, yeah, trade seeds.
Open
you know?
open market, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on how it would affect not only yourself as a home grower, but maybe even industry? I'm curious if you have thoughts on both of those topics.
The industry side, Metric has a thing that you just say like you're bringing genetics in to your facility, and it says you use that option if it's not from another licensed facility. So there's a way to transfer product from one licensed cultivation center to another cultivation center. So if you were trading seeds or clones, you have that option. And if it's, like you said, immaculate conception of where genetics come from, you just have this other option. You still have to go through the Department of Ag and say, hey, we're bringing in new genetics, so they know. But other than that, yeah, it's just whatever you want to do, I guess. In terms of home grow, so I don't think that new ruling, I don't think it's going to change much for industry. Home grow, I kind of don't think it's going to change anything there either, because seeds have been sold and shipped across the states and across the world before we had any of this legalization stuff happening. That includes Colorado, California.
Do you think it'll be sold though as openly as it has been in like grow shops?
No. I don't. I don't know what it means, like retail side, like physical brick and mortar store, like you said. That's obviously going to change. I wouldn't be surprised if some of it is just you have to know cool people at the store,
right?
And you're still going to be able to have that conversation. Just you won't have that conversation if you're a brand new customer to that store or something. Maybe kind of go back to the old days of just kind of know, you got to know someone.
Yeah.
Clones from events. That's a big bummer, I guess.
And I get this viewer's point, but I still think even if it's a niche, like it's a good one.
It's hard to grow weed. It's hard to grow good weed, but
yeah,
it's a lot of work to grow weed. You can do it cheaply and easily, but you're probably not going to be super happy with those results, and you're probably going to get unmotivated because of that, and you probably won't grow more than like 2 or 3 cycles. If you wonder how hard it is, get on Facebook Marketplace and just look and see how many people are selling their grow tents and their lights and stuff. I don't think it's because they didn't like growing weed. It's probably because it was too hard for them, or they don't have the right space for it or something. So I think that you will probably see more home growers start back up because of, if they can't go get their hemp from the gas station or the smoke shop, I wonder how many of them will take the chance and start trying to grow, because they don't want to go support the market in a dispensary. And just cost wise, I saw that Illinois, they just released some more numbers, and looking at the cost of products that have been sold, they've all dropped quite a bit. I feel like in the last several months, prices are down, I think like $33 to $35 per gram for concentrates, when it used to be $60, $50 like every day. Whether or not that's companies are just putting stuff on sale automatically, that it's $50 or $60, the like retail price, but they're dropping their prices down as a sale just to move the product. But
yeah, speaking of which, I just saw this article dropped yesterday. I don't know if this is some of what you're referencing, but first of all, people have been asking, writing into the podcast and stuff, and I think somebody even tagged me on Twitter once and was like, Hey Cole, where's the sales data? Something I usually don't really track. I got a friend that tracks it pretty close, and he lets me know if he sees anything. And this is one thing he did reach out to me about, and he was like, him among others, like I said, we are like, Cole, what's going on with the sales data? And one thing I noticed was that it lined up the missing sales data, quote unquote, from the last few months, lined up with when we switched to metric. Somebody else, Michael Lasley from Illinois News Joint, commented and had a similar observation, and they seem to confirm that it says the document today explained that the switch to metric had been the cause of the lack of data. And the headline of this story is Illinois cannabis data change suggests much lower sales. So
that couldn't be strictly from, they're not saying that like the old system was forging sales or anything, right?
That's what's unclear. I mean, my friend sent me a message. He said, so the numbers have been wrong the whole time.
Yeah, that's I don't like, how is that even possible? Like, how could they? I don't know.
Yeah,
because like looking at the numbers, it's basically that the amount of sales this year is like, or at this point is like our 2021 like level, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. Sorry, if I'm scrolling around and driving anybody crazy, I'm just trying to take in this whole document.
The Crew website has got some cool graphs and stuff for the different products and stuff that you can see a little bit easier in terms of the changes, year over year and stuff. But
yeah. Well, anyways, I wanted to, since you brought up a sales number, I saw that this article had just dropped. So if people want to read it, I'll try to throw this in the show notes as well. Illinois cannabis data suggests much lower sales. So it says a thorough review of past data indicates prior months collected some pre-discount prices. Sales tracking features and metric helps retailers more accurately and reliably report actual sales, including all discounts and promotions at checkout.
that makes sense, I guess.
Okay. So
that would be dollar amount of like pre-sale before a discount was made, and that's what the old numbers were showing. And now the new metric numbers have adjusted that, and so you're only getting what the customer paid essentially instead.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. That's interesting. Yeah, and here's another explanation from the state right here. I've got my mouse hovering around it.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. I missed that we actually got a comment from, oh, thanks. You sent me I can pull that up. I saw we got a follow-up comment from our home grower friend. He was saying something like, I've been growing since the 90s and it just gets better and better. Growing good weed is easy as growing good food. All of our grandparents and great-grandparents did it. I will say, I've had really great luck growing weed and I've had really bad luck. So, but I think the same could be said with food. And you just gotta, but like you said, satisfied. I think what you said is like accurate for me. Like some people just like, it is a lot and you gotta figure out how to bend it into your schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had
just like
grows
growing
that
food,
have failed and was super disappointed or had to throw weed away because it molded or whatever. And that's a part of it. You have good days, you have bad days. Look at farmers, it's like you get a rainy season or something and you can't get the crops in at the right time, and then they're late getting planted, and then come harvest time, if it's rainy, you have to leave them in the field. Like there's so many variables that can happen that you have to be persistent and willing to ride that wave, good and bad.
Was there any specific figures you wanted to show on this site?
Just like that slide right there, I mean, is shocking to see. I mean, in terms of your retail sales dropping by 40 million, basically 30 million.
Wow.
Over the course of a couple months. But that's what I'm saying. Like if that is because of the metric switch over, then what's the explanation for before that time, compared to now?
Yeah, I wonder if they,
because even medical has been affected. The medical numbers are not as drastic of a shift, but they dropped quite a bit as well too.
yeah, and one thing this article did mention, by the way, and I didn't know what they meant. They said there's been no update on medical cannabis from the state in a while. The state separately releases, sales from its medical program, and the release from April showed that the sales fell 1.6% sequentially to 19.7 million, which was down 13.2% from a year ago.
Yeah, the numbers are. You start looking at the numbers like that. I mean, even in a chart like this graph, you can see the medical sales just declining.
Yeah, are you talking like right here?
Well, just overall, but yeah, specifically, those new changes and seeing them drop that bit. You see a big shift like that compared to historically, there's not that big of a drop. You have to question, but
yeah.
Yeah, and if you tab over to the AUC average price, which would be your adult use, that's the 2025. So you can see the numbers are all way lower than previous years.
Right.
And some of that, it's like, well, you can't count 2020 because it was brand new program. 21, 22, still COVID, kind of weird time. So everyone had a lot of COVID money that they were spending on their weed. So I don't know. It's I can look at the numbers and you can make assumptions, but how much of it is actually true and how much of it is you just putting some names to numbers? They do have the average medical average price on the products posted, and it doesn't show. Yeah, it doesn't show as much of. I mean, it's obviously still a huge drop. I don't know. It's just interesting. I'd like to see a couple more months and kind of see how the rest of this year plays out.
Absolutely. Yeah, because times are tough right now too,
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe like that plays into it. Everybody's talking about like cost of living, like that apparently won this most recent midterm election, and now you've even got, it's like everybody's talking about it now. So
yeah, and I feel like weed's one of the first things, weed and alcohol, the first things that people cut out or at least slim down on to make up for those times. If you got to get more pay more money for groceries, then
yeah, this person
or
literally
insurance. Yeah,
this commenter went exactly what we were thinking. Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the year plays out, and then into next year in terms of those numbers. But that's why you grow your own, people. You don't have to worry about what the market is doing.
Right.
And in terms of seeds, you can make your own seeds pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my man. I hope that what this does is, and somebody said this earlier, and I said this the other day, I really hope this does unify the cannabis movement, because the bifurcation of the cannabis movement, for lack of better words, splitting it into hemp and marijuana, like it was just so silly.
I feel like it took advantage of a lot of people.
Yeah. It was just an unneeded distinction, and it just confused people. And it's like there were people like ourselves who could see the good things about it and maybe even, push for fixing what people might call the bad things about it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I say, I hope this allows us to just be on the same page. I think we're still going to be on different pages in terms of like, people may not support home grow, or people may not be supportive of like, more open licensing, but at least we can I hope we can have those conversations like in good faith, because it felt like with the hemp thing, it was about those principles, but you could easily have bad faith conversations by being like, oh, this THCP like sprayed flower, like,
Yeah, I mean, there's things about the hemp bill loophole, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's things about it that I did not like, sure, but there's also things that I'm glad that it was so out in the open and so many people were turned on to cannabis in a way that you almost like cat's out of the bag. Like you can't, some of these people, you stop people from drinking alcohol or change their habits like that. Like, especially with alcohol, that's a really tough one to beat and change. So shows the power of cannabis. Maybe it wasn't them, but maybe it was a brother or an uncle or a cousin that they saw start to use cannabis, or a grandparent, eating some gummies or something like that, that they saw, oh, wow, what am I trying to say? Like the way of life, improved, the quality of life, So I don't know. I think that I don't see this all going away. I think this is just going to open up changes, regulation, unfortunately, maybe for some, but I think that it's probably a necessary. The market's got to exist. You can't get rid of it. It's just a matter of how do you word it and allow it to work together with the licensed THC market. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be.
I know what I would like, but that's not going to happen. So.
Yeah, I know. I want to like go off on and talk about all the things that I would like, but I worry that it's not going to happen too.
And with this being announced, snuck in, signed, all of that quickly, I see no chance of decriminalization, legalization, anything like that for cannabis on federal level until years now. I know we all had hopes that Trump was going to maybe decriminalize, legalize, change things. Now I'm wondering,
Oh, I mean, I still see people on like investment Twitter that are very hopeful. They say that this is like part of a two-step. They say like you take out hemp and next up is rescheduling. And there's this one reporter, I think for the Marijuana Herald, that reported that some staff member close to Trump said that following an event, this was like a few weeks ago, following the event or an event, we'll reschedule. And so that's what people are speculating. I don't believe that that's the case. It looks like one of our listeners is like, Trump ? Yeah, I'm not hopeful on that. I know that he's tweeted or truthed or whatever the hell it's called, that he supported Amendment 3 and in the run up to the election.
He said a lot of things.
And his statement regarding when he was actually last asked about rescheduling just made me think, because he said something about like, oh, I've heard some good things about medical, but the rest I've not heard but good things. And it's like, that does not, I don't know if you know this person, but just that statement alone does not sound like a person that like is with, it to say.
That I heard enough at that point to go, okay, yeah, this isn't happening.
Right. So,
yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah, support your local weed dealer.
Right. Yeah, they can't take that away from you. That's for sure.
And I mean, I really don't think that weed's not going anywhere. I mean, they can write whatever legislation that they want, but shit's been operating this way for years before legalization anywhere. People have been bringing seeds around since Vietnam, so good luck.
Yeah, that's a good.
You're going to have people that are growing and making more seeds now than before just out of protest. I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing weed plants popping up everywhere out in public lands because of this.
Yeah. And here's what I will tease to close. Like I think it was last week, the last couple of weeks, I went to a court hearing for a home grower whose house was raided in the state of Illinois, a legal home grower with a medical card. The police knew he had a medical card. We have documents that show that. We've got the body cam footage. We've got documents of the investigation they did on this guy, like creeped on his Facebook page and stuff. One of the reasons, by the way, they used to search the house was that they could smell cannabis outside the house, which is not a crime. Well, the only time cannabis smell is questionably a crime in the state of Illinois is when you're in a vehicle on a roadway.
I think in regulations, I think it says something about like having due diligence to try and keep the smell like to a minimum. I don't think that it has anything in particular about like it cannot smell from outside the, house or anything, but I think it says like you're supposed to be taking measures to keep the smell from like bothering neighbors or something like that. So I wonder if that's kind of like their reasoning of if you can smell it from outside the house, then you're not doing a good enough job, and now we have reason to come and inspect the garden.
I don't know. I'm not familiar. I'd have to look that up. I'm not familiar with that. But I feel like if anything, that might be an industry regulation, but I don't know. Are you saying you've seen that in the
I think it was in the CRTA, yeah. For patient growing.
Okay. Let's look and see if, just because it's fun and I think people can learn, we'll see if we can find it. But anyways, we're gonna be sharing that stuff we will be sharing the body cam footage. I will be interviewing, I plan to interview not only the defense attorney, but the plaintiff or the defendant. Sorry, the defendant. Got to learn my legal terms. In other words, the home grower who got his house raided. In fact, I've already done the interview, and it's a crazy story. To see the body cam footage is nuts. To see the documents are even crazier. And I'm surprised this hasn't gotten more coverage than it has. But we will share more in the near future, probably, hopefully before the end of the year, but probably in the new year. Because as I mentioned earlier, I was just in court recently for this. I'll tell the story about it. It was interesting. I didn't do anything crazy, but apparently okay, I'll tell the story because I can't just like say this and not give the backstory. I almost got charged with contempt of court. Okay. See, that's something I can't just like tease, right?
Yeah.
So all I did was I was waiting for the court proceeding to start, and nobody else was in the courtroom. And the defendant, who I know, we've gotten to know each other, we've done the interview and everything, and his lawyer's sitting there, and I was like, this is a cool picture. I'm going to take a picture of them. Nobody else is in the courtroom. Nobody. And I wanted to do it then because I was like, nobody else is in the courtroom. And so I take a picture of them and I'm chilling, and it's like 10 minutes later and I hear like stomping, and this person comes flying in. They're like, "Sir, come here." And I was like, okay. And I walked over, and like I said, it was 10 minutes later. So I didn't even know what the hell had gone on. I kind of forgot already that I had taken the picture. And he walked me out and he's like, "Did you see this sign when you entered the courtroom?" And I was like, "Gonna be honest, no, I didn't." And he was like, "All right, if you take your phone out one more time, you will be charged with contempt of court." I was like, okay. So that's a story of how I almost got charged with contempt of court.
The court's no joke, huh?
Apparently. So anyways, we went through the court hearing. They brought law enforcement officers in. It was a very interesting thing, and I'll be talking about all of that and more on a future episode of the Cole Memo. I'll probably even write an article on it with like pictures and stuff for folks that prefer to read things. So that's something to look forward to. Crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
I've been trying to look for this home grow thing, and I can't find it. So I don't know if I'm just looking at the wrong spots here. Let me see here. I think I just found it.
I will put the law on the screen. For folks that are wondering, I'm on ilga.gov. I'm looking at the CRTA, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. I'm looking up 5 plants, just because
Yeah,
that's.
you're there. Never mind. You got it.
And did you say you saw it in here?
I thought that I had read it in here at one point. Yeah.
Do you remember the phrase you saw? Like something to do with. I know there's ordinary public view. I know that one for sure.
Yeah, so like it says a registered qualifying patient who cultivates, this isn't it, but it's right after that, talking about secure from unauthorized access. I feel like it was something along those lines, but
Secure for yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I remember I actually got invited. I want to try to see if I can get a copy of it. I invited the what's this? Did you send witness slips? Oh, that was
no, I had sent the part that I was looking at here, but you were already on it.
Oh, gotcha. I thought that was anyways, what was I just gonna say? Damn. Couple joints in. Lost my train of thought.
I've been sick for the last like week, so I have not been smoking anything, just been eating my RSO that I've been making. So it's a nice little change of pace, but I miss consuming that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember what I was gonna say, but that's all right. Something to do with home grow. I don't know. Anyways, that'll be a cool story, something to look forward to for folks that are interested in home grow. Yeah, I'll have to try to look. Oh, I was talking about when the state invited me to do a presentation on home grow, and they did mention things that I wasn't aware of being in the law. Like, for example, that if you're going to do home grow in something, that it's like got to be either on the property of your primary residence, but they specifically like mentioned like, and the house has to have like a bathroom and
Running
something.
water.
Yeah, running water or
Yeah.
something. And I was just like,
has to have like a place to sleep and running water.
yes, a place to sleep, sleeping quarters, I think is what they called it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in this presentation that's being given by the state, and I'm about to have to like, you can actually look at the presentation. It's funny. It's on the state's website right now. If you look back at their like meetings with patients, they say like patient perspective, Cole Preston, and they had me like come and talk about like as a patient what it's like to home grow. And one thing I remember saying back then, and I didn't even it's funny because like in hindsight, so what I said was in the presentation, they like let me talk about what it's like to home grow as a medical patient and why I do it. And one of the things I said was like, you can't buy seeds at the dispensary right now, but if you go to like a head shop or if you go to like a grow shop, you can probably buy seeds because the DEA like said that, you know, what we said earlier, that hemp seeds are not Schedule 1 anymore, so you can just buy them. And the state like cut me off. And they're like, hey, let's not get into like areas where you're given like legal advice. And I was like, oh, my bad. I was just like, you know, there's nowhere to get seeds. It's like, it seems like it's a very important part of this conversation.
I'm surprised they haven't been sued yet for that. Like, as a patient, you're telling me that I can grow my own, but I have to go to the dispensary to get it. And yet there's no dispensary that's allowing me to do that. Like, how is the program still a thing if like the main component is to grow your own and you can't?
Right.
Like,
or you're in a position where you also have to commit immaculate conception. For commit seems like a strong word, but yeah, basically.
Yeah, I don't, it's all weird. Like I said, there's so much that needs done. So where do you start?
Right.
Well, and then they big changes. So just riding the wave, man.
Just riding the wave. Exactly. Folks, if you haven't yet, hit that like button. It does help a lot. We're about to wrap it up. What have you been smoking on? I'll ask you that, audience and you.
I had some GMO fuel. It was the last thing that I had. I think that I was smoking on that last time that we talked. It was my last harvest, so I'm still just enjoying that.
Nice. Here's a debate for the audience. Do you say Caribbean or Caribbean, cannabinoids or
cannabinoids?
Cannabinoids. Yeah. Cannabinoids or cannabinoids?
I always used to say cannabinoids until I heard someone say, well, it's from the canna plant, so it has to have that prefix. So it's always cannabinoid. Like in my brain, it changed from that day. I was like, all right, yep, that's easy enough for me to remember. And for my pronounce, yeah.
I like it.
And Caribbean or Caribbean, it depends how I'm using it in a sentence.
Yeah, I'm in the Caribbean. Or wait, no. I'm in the Caribbean. I'm watching Pirates of the Caribbean.
I don't know
That's the
what's
only
proper, but
That's
it's
the
fun just
only
to entertain.
context in which it's proper, I feel like.
Yeah,
I'm
I just like switching it up, just depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, no, it's same here. I don't know when it's yeah. I don't think there is a proper. I think it just is how you say it.
Yeah.
It's like what was I saying on the show for a while that a friend damn it, I can't think of the word. Uh presume no fuck. I don't know. Man, I
I
can't
used
remember.
to say how did I used BOTH?
Both?
Yeah. I used to say both, like with an
Okay.
L in there, and I hear a lot of people do that, and I had one point someone say to me, "How do you spell that?" And I was like, BOTH, and they said, "Say it again." I was like, "Both." And they're like, "How do you spell that?" And I realized what they were doing. I was like, "Oh, I'm throwing a letter in there." I was like, "Okay." And since then, same thing. Switched my brain, and now it's both every time.
I remember what it is. Presents, the word presents, not like what you get for Christmas, but like your presents.
Yeah.
For a while, I would say like if they have a presence.
Oh.
Which I'll tell you, I think why. I
Is
think I
that a
was like
different word?
listening to well, maybe, but I think I just heard like somebody on the BBC and they were talking like your online presence. Like, and I was just like, that's how I'm saying presence now. I like that better.
I watch
You
a
know?
lot of Formula One, and they have international feeds, and so you have different commentators.
Mhm.
And yeah, some of the words that they say, I don't say them, but like when someone says the word in my brain, I'll say it like the British version of the word.
Yeah,
So it's just
like privacy. I always privacy.
privacy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If it's slick out, it's slippy instead of being slick. It's just little things like that. That's just a lot of fun that not many people are, in on the joke almost, but
Yeah, looks like somebody's smoking on C99, which is Vietnamese black crossed with Hawaiian cherry bomb. That sounds delightful.
that seems like a head trip.
I was about to say, give me your number,
Herpy
but
head trip.
I think I have this person's number. I might have to hit them up. I'm just joking. Genetic Memory Farms. I'm just joking.
We need to get a Chillinois sesh together at some point. Find
Absolutely.
somewhere that we can meet up and get down.
That I'd be down with that. Do are others in the audience, would they be down to join a sesh? Obviously, with the cold,
Yeah,
may be complicated, but and the other thing is just like depending on where people are from, that always can complicate things. But if we plan things out in advance, maybe we could make something happen.
Yeah, it'd be cool to be able to do something kind of mid-state, so everyone, whether you're in Chicagoland or down south or east or west, that you'd be able to get there.
I'd love that because I'm from mid-state, so that's fucking convenient.
Yeah, me too, but the same thing, it's also mid-state, so everyone's got to work for it a little bit.
True.
Instead of a couple people having to work really hard, so.
Yeah, true, man. Yeah, because like sometimes even me going up to Chicago, it can be a lot.
Are you doing judging this weekend?
No, I'll be announcing.
Announcing.
And actually, I won't be. It'll be Cowboy Cole, my alter ego.
That's right. Yeah. Forgot.
I'm just being silly, but yeah, I'll be.
Are you wearing the full getup?
Yep.
All right.
That's the plan. So yeah, you heard it here. If you're still tuning in, if you're still on air, there's the Urban Legends Social. You got to get your tickets at highfocusmedia.com. I think if you can't, if like that's not something you can do, hit them up. But go to, if you can't afford it, hit them up. But highfocusmedia.com, and it's this Sunday, trying to find the time. I can't get to highfocusmedia.com. But this Sunday, there's like a home grow competition, and I will be announcing winners and trying not to say. I'll just try to announce, because last time I was involved in a home grow competition, like I was just narrating what the other judges said. Apparently, that was controversial. It's because somebody had said like, "Oh, so it was a home grow versus corporate cannabis competition."
Okay.
And it was blind, so people didn't know which one was home grow and which one was from the dispensary. And it's Urban Legends with a HER, like herb, like the good herb, urban, like I say, highfocusmedia.com. But fuck, I'm so high, I forgot. Oh yeah, so the corporate versus home grow. Some people were guessing along the way, like, oh yeah, this is corporate, this is from the dispensary, this is home grow because this is really sticky or something like that. And this one was definitely a home grow. And somebody was like, I narrated, I was like, somebody at the table is saying that this has probably been rolled through a machine trimmer, that's definitely from the dispensary. And I heard the home grow in the crowd like, they're saying my fucking weed. I was like, oh shit.
It's like the biggest insult almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Machine handled my buds. No way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
that would be an interesting contest.
Yeah, it was cool.
I'd be interested to see how many licensed facilities would be willing to put their product on the line, or was that all through product purchased at the dispensary that people entered, or how was that?
So yeah, licensed operators entered, and there were I think at least a handful, and it was pretty cool that they did that. And then home growers just entered their own samples, and so yeah, it was like,
what's the testing typically? How is that done on like a purple thing? Is that through a licensed lab, or
what do you mean?
Was there any potency testing, or was it just off of?
It was just like I was technically one of the judges. I told them when they asked me, I was like, I don't know, like I smoke a lot of home grow and sometimes weed from the dispensary, so I can give you my opinion, but I'm not like a those people that are like, yeah, I'm not like a fucking ganjier. Yeah, those people that are like, I'm getting like fucking tea notes and a little hint of Skittles,
It's fun to do, but you don't have any schooling for that.
Also, when you're fucking I like when these competitions allow you to space these things out when I have participated, because this one, like, I'm just sitting on stage getting absolutely blitzed. And by the time it's over, it's like, if you're asking me to judge on like effect and all that stuff, and even flavor, I'm like, at that point,
your mouth is toast after like the third one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was a great time. Don't get me wrong. I had a great time, but I didn't feel like we were giving people a good judge, if I'm being like candid. That's what
I wonder, like, what's the best way to do a judging contest like that? It's like you have to do it over the course of like a week or so you have that time to not be impaired before you try the next one, so you can get a fair judge across the board. But there's no way to do that in one day.
Right. It can be a very heated discussion online. I've seen people get very passionate, I should say, about it. One thing, like, people even question like the idea of like submitting different strains. Like, some people say a home grow competition should be everybody gets a cut and you see who does the best cut. But even then, people acknowledge, like, and as you know, you might be thinking this right now, sometimes I could have a handful of seeds or even cuttings and they perform differently just depending on like whatever. I don't even know. There's variables that I don't even understand.
Same cut under different lights in the same, like in my basement, if I had 2 tents and had one cut in one and one cut, the same cut in another tent under different lights, same nutrients, probably still have different plants, like visually different the smell, olfactory would probably be different.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and you know, I think you'll have that, but I guess what I'm saying is like, what if you get the runt? That's kind of really what I'm asking is like, you know, yes, of course there's going to be different effects from your growing environment, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like, I've popped
Genetically.
5 different seeds and sometimes there's just a runt, you
Yeah.
know, and sometimes they're great in their own little way, but sometimes they're just like difficult.
They
you
need
know?
extra care. Yeah.
They need extra care. Yeah. You get it.
Yep.
So,
I've had one of those plants that you nurse it and it comes out to be pretty awesome. And you go, yeah, but is it worth it? All that effort
right.
for that final product. And then you decide keep it or cut and cry.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah. Thanks
Always
for
a good
coming on.
time.
Thanks for
Well,
coming on. I appreciate you coming on. So,
till
cheers,
next
man.
time.
Yeah. Hope you have a good Friday night and we'll see you.
Sounds good. Peace.
Take care. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. Definitely went longer than I had planned to, but that's okay. It's always fun. That's why I like to have callers on because then you have unplanned conversations like that. So, the beginning of the show, I pretty much covered most of the news that I wanted to. I will throw some other articles in the show notes if you want to check that out. I've got a lot of the articles that I referenced in the show notes already if you're watching live. But I try to go in after the fact and add other links we may have referenced. And I'll definitely be doing that in this case because when we were talking, we referenced a bunch of different links, and I'll try to throw all those in there if you want to look at them on your own PCs and do your own research. Because I always encourage that. Try to look at it yourself, come away with your own conclusions. If you haven't already, smash that like button. I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you're having a good Friday night. It's been kind of a rough time for me lately. But I won't get into that. I won't bring the energy down. I'm hoping things are going to be better. The seasons are changing, and we're going into the holiday season, which I'm super excited about. I love Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to eating food. I hope you guys are all looking forward to something like that as well if you celebrate any of the holidays. And yeah, I just appreciate all of your support. We have almost 100 viewers. Looks like almost 68 on Twitter, like 25 on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. If, like I said, for the last time, if you haven't smashed the like button, I know everybody says it, but it really does help. So if you can do that on YouTube, I would appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Cole Memo. Take care, everybody. Cheers.